Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live, Status Coup. It is Thursday, June 16 in the United Corporations of America. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day and staying safe and sane in these trying times of mass inflation. Still got COVID and multiple variants spreading. Obviously, the January 6th hearings are going on. And, a whole lot of other things. So glad you could make it here. Please do me the kindness. Smash that like button. It's a thumbs up right under the live video. The more people that press like, the more people that will see this live stream. Coming up later, we're going to do something, I don't know, just a new, fresh idea called Throwback Thursday. I know that's around. We're going to do our version, and we're going to start going through some of the old Status Coup hits. Replaying interviews I did and kind of giving you a little behind the scenes of what went on and my commentary on those interviews I did. See if you like it, see if you enjoy it. And I don't know if people like it, maybe I'll start doing it more just for members too. More of those kind of throwbacks to old videos. So we're going to today we're going to go back to the good old days of the Democratic primary debate, where I interviewed a Trump supporter on the side of the road who decried socialism before telling me how much he loves his Social Security. So I look forward to that stroll through memory lane. Also going to get to when does Democrats, if they have a spine, which they don't, start the impeachment hearings for Clarence Thomas. I mean, I've never seen anything so clear in terms of a Supreme Court justice violating his oath of, I guess not office, but his oath as a justice through his wife. The evidence is mounting that Ginni Thomas, the extremist wife of Clarence Thomas, basically was working with the Trump campaign to try and overturn the election. It seems that Clarence Thomas was leaking things to his wife, Ginni Thomas, who was then leaking things to the Trump campaign. I don't know. I think if that was a liberal judge, the Republicans would be coming for pitchforks. But it's a Republican judge, and the Democrats are coming with kombucha. You can't make this up. So we'll get to that. But I wanted to start. And please smash the like button. Colin, did we send out a text? I don't see it. So if we didn't, let's send it out.
Yes, it's just slow.
Okay. I'm glad that we pay $500 for this text service for them to send out the text the next calendar year. That's the behind the scenes, folks. But before I start, I don't know if my wife is watching. I wanted to start with a little feel good moment. This is the latest report from my dog, Billy. All right. Just wanted to have some fun here. That's on my dog's Instagram if you want to follow it. From Millie with love. From Millie with love. Or Moscow Millie, because we got her from Russia. Anyway, I digress. We're also setting up a Millie cam. Actually, Colin set it up. I just don't know how to use it. And if I could get my dog to stay in her bed, we will cut to my dog throughout the broadcast when we could set that up. Now, if you remember, in 2016, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, they had a brilliant idea. It was called the Pied Piper strategy. And their idea was, let's prop up Donald Trump. Let's feed the media and urge the media to cover Donald Trump. Let's urge the media to cover his empty podiums. Let's urge the media to keep on ginning up Trump. Let's try to get Republican pundits on TV to talk about him, because if we could just get Trump to win the Republican nomination, the coronation for Queen Hillary would begin. Well, Obviously, we know how that worked out for President Hillary Clinton. Well, apparently, and smash that like button. We only have 98 people have liked, but we have 180 watching. So I need over 100 people. Please smash that like button. We have the Democratic Party now apparently trying that out in bulk across the country. New York Times, Democrats' risky bet. Aid GOP extremists in the spring, hoping to beat them in the fall. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. As Democratic leaders warn loudly of right-wing threats to democracy, their campaign arms are meddling in Republican primaries, betting they can help pick easier opponents in November. Even as national Democrats set off alarm over threats posed by far-right Republican candidates, their campaign partners are pursuing an enormously risky strategy, promoting some of those same far-right candidates in GOP primaries in hopes that extremists will be easier for Democrats to beat in November. These efforts, starkest in the Central Valley of California, where a Democratic campaign ad lashed Representative David Valado, a Republican, for voting to impeach Donald Trump, have prompted angry finger-pointing and a debate within the party over the perils and wisdom of the strategy, especially in the middle of the January 6th hearings. The concern is obvious. In a year when soaring gasoline prices and disorienting inflation have crushed Biden's approval, Republican candidates whom Democrats may deem unelectable could well win on the basis of their party affiliation alone. Quote, I realize that this type of political gamesmanship has existed forever, but our country is in a very different place now than we were in previous cycles, said Congresswoman Kathleen Rice, a Democrat of New York. For these Democratic groups to throw money at raising up a person who they know wants to tear down this democracy is outrageous. I love the fact that the New York Times, the first person they went to is a corrupt Democratic congressman, Kathleen Rice, who represents Long Island, by the way, where I grew up, who was one of 3 Democrats who blocked lowering the price of prescription drugs. It is, I mean, as corrupt as they come, has openly said that she will be going to take a lobbyist job when she leaves Congress. So that's the first person they go to get a quote on our democracy. Very interesting. And yes, keep those, drop those super chats in. I'll read them towards the end. Let's continue. Republican targets asked how they were supposed to buck their leadership and take difficult votes if their erstwhile allies in the Democratic Party are lying in wait. Quote, I voted the way I voted because I thought it was important, Mr. Valado said of his impeachment vote. But to put us in a spot where we're voting for these things and then try to use it as ammo against us in the campaigns and put people that they potentially see as a threat to democracy in a position where they could become members of Congress, it tells me they're not serious about governing. The Democratic efforts extends well beyond Mr. Valado's race. Pennsylvania Democratic Party singled out State Senator Doug Mastriano during its successful quest for the Republican nomination for governor, despite his propagation of false claims about the 2020 election and his attendance at the January 6th protests behind the White House that immediately preceded the Capitol riot. In Southern California, a Democratic candidate for the House, Asif Mahmood, flooded Orange County airwaves with advertisements that framed his run as a contest between him and an anti-abortion conservative, Greg Raths, aiding Mr. Raths by never mentioning the leading Republican in the race, Representative Young Kim, the incumbent and a much more moderate candidate. It highlighted Mr. Rath's support for overturning Roe v. Wade and banning abortions and his affinity for pro-Trump Republicans, stances as likely to appeal to Republican primary voters as to rile up Democrats in the general election. The effort didn't succeed. Mr. Kim held off Mr. Raths. And in Colorado, a shadowy new group called Democratic Colorado is spending nearly $1.5 million ahead of the state's June 28th primary to broadcast the conservative views of State Representative Ron Hanks, who hopes to challenge Senator Michael Bennet, an incumbent Democrat. Mr. Hanks' views would be widely shared by Republican primary voters, left unmentioned for now were Mr. Hanks bragging about marching to the Capitol on January 6th, his false claim that those who attacked the Capitol were left-wing Antifa, and his baseless insistence that the 2020 election was stolen by Biden. So you get the point. Democrats in their, DUMBocrats in their wisdom around the country are basically, I think they're listening to like MSNBC to be their consultants and think that the majority of the country and the general election voters, their top concern is democracy. It's not. We don't have a democracy. We live in the United Corporations of America. We haven't had a democracy since we had the Electoral College, when the popular vote and the person who gets the most votes is most of the time the loser. You can't really say you have a democracy. When policy after policy after policy has 70, 80% approval and it virtually never gets passed into law, you can't really say that's a representative democracy. So we don't really have a democracy per se. We have an oligarchy masking as a democracy. But what's incredible is these Democrats think that, all right, if we just get the most extreme Republican to win the nomination and they would be the Republican nominee, well, obviously the general election voter will be so outraged by these people, in many cases, partaking in the January 6th insurrection, will be so outraged by these people pushing, whatever their insanity is, attacks on transgender people, overturning Roe v. Wade, et cetera, et cetera. But they're kind of forgetting a lot of those people are winning, not just in primaries, but in general elections. And it's not enough to just point to the extremists and just point to the people that tried to storm the Capitol and overturn the election and all that. If you as a candidate, I'm talking about Michael Bennet in Colorado, other cardboard, vanilla, corporatist Democrats, well, what are you gonna say that you've delivered? What? A $1,400 check that nobody remembers isn't helping them now with $5 gas on the East Coast, $6 to $7 gas on the West Coast. What are you going to say you delivered? An infrastructure deal that was really a privatization scheme? It's not helping the masses, that infrastructure deal. What are you going to say you delivered? Temporarily for a year, cutting poverty in half, but the way you wrote the bill, it was allowed to expire in a year? That's what you're going to deliver? I mean, the list goes on. You are essentially elevating lunatics and then countering those lunatics with, look at the lunatics and nothing more. Because you can't actually run on accomplishments, and you can't actually run on, look at the lunatics compared to what I've done for you. When all you do is point out the other side, but you don't have an alternative and you don't have results, you know what? You're going to gin up the Republican base to come out, but it's not going to be matched by your base because your base is deflated. This is what happened with Hillary Clinton in 2016. In 2020, Biden won. Frankly, the numbers looked like Biden won in a landslide, but if you actually look at the states he won, it was 20,000 votes he won in 20,000 votes he won in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. He didn't win in a landslide in those states. So essentially what the Democrats are doing is the Hillary Clinton campaign strategy. Pied Piper, let's elevate the crazies because we and our consultants in DC and our MSNBC hosts, we think it would be a shoo-in to beat them because we're actually disconnected from what the actual fervor is across the country. Now, some of these candidates that the Democrats are trying to prop up through the Pied Piper strategy, some of them they can beat in the general election because they're just too beyond the pale. But some of them that they're propping up to victory. This is why it's not just that the Democrats are corrupt. They're really, really politically stupid. Very, very politically stupid. And I said years ago, kind of joking, maybe they're trying to lose. Years later, I don't really think it's as much a joke anymore. I think in some cases, Democrats are trying to lose. It helps them perennially be in the opposition. Consultants make a ton of money when the Democrats are in the minority, because then you are fighting, you're the resistance. The money floods in, the campaigns flood in, the advocacy organizations and the activist groups of the resistance and the Democratic Party, when they're on the opposing side and they're fighting the extremist Republicans of the majority, it's all one endless cycle of scam, really. Just to remind you, this is from Salon several years ago, how the Hillary Clinton campaign deliberately elevated Donald Trump with its Pied Piper strategy. Republican Donald Trump, a far-right demagogue who campaigned on a slew of bigoted, xenophobic policies, has won the 2016 presidential election in a shocking victory few people predicted. Well, what was not often acknowledged in Trump's heated race against Hillary Clinton, however, was her campaign fueled his rise to power. As emails recently released by the whistleblowing organization WikiLeaks shows how the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party bear direct responsibility for propelling the bigoted billionaire to the White House. In its self-described Pied Piper strategy, the Clinton campaign proposed intentionally cultivating extreme right-wing presidential candidates, hoping to turn them into the mainstream of the Republican Party in order to try to increase Clinton's chances of winning. The Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee called for using far-right candidates, quote, as a cudgel to move the more established candidates further to the right. Clinton's camp insisted that Trump and other extremists should be elevated to leaders of the pack, and media outlets should be told to take them seriously. That strategy backfired royally. On April 23rd, 2015, 2 weeks after Hillary Clinton officially declared her presidential campaign, her staff sent out a group message with information for a, quote, strategy call. The email included an attachment, a memo for the DNC discussion. The memo, which was addressed to the DNC, outlined the strategy and goals a potential Hillary Clinton presidential campaign would have regarding the 2016 presidential field. The document stated clearly most of what is contained in this memo is work the DNC is already doing. So there you have that the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign were working together before she even announced her run in 2016. This exercise is intended to put those ideas to paper. It continued, our hope is that the goal of a potential HRC campaign and the DNC would be one in the same, to make whomever the Republican nominate unpalatable to majority of the electorate. The memo articulated a three-point strategy. Point one called for forcing, quote, all Republican candidates to lock themselves into extreme conservative positions that will hurt them in a general election. At the time, there were more than a dozen Republican presidential candidates. The variety of candidates is a positive here, the Clinton campaign said. Many of the lesser known can serve as a cudgel to move to the more established candidates further to the right. I think you get the point here. Well, if Democrats somehow think that adopting the Pied Piper strategy of the Clinton campaign is a winner for November, have at it. Have at it. But this is absolute insanity. I think these Democrats, by and large, are going to lose anyway. But yeah, propping up loony January 6ers, crazy Republicans who want to attack transgender people, want to overturn Roe v. Wade. Some of them have direct links to Proud Boys, Oath Keepers. Don't then act shocked when we further fall into fascism, which we've already been a fascist country for years. And there's Republican fascists that are more of the white supremacy fascism. And then there's Democrat fascists who are more of the corporate fascism. So fascism is a bipartisan thing too, unfortunately, in this country. Steve says November will be a blood birth. Yeah, it will be. And then we're going to have 2 years of impeachment hearings and, pretty much nothing getting done, possibly a recession. And then Democrats are going to try and screw whoever the progressive candidate is. Because at this point, I'm not a betting man, but I don't know. At this point, I think it's a 40-60, 40% Biden run, 60% he doesn't. Colin, maybe do a poll. Ask people what they think. Will Biden run in 2024? Yes or no? But the last thing I'll say on this before we move on, who is advising these Democrats, right? What is a better campaign message? Okay. What's a better campaign message? Let's try and elect and prop up the crazies to be our opponent. And then these people are crazy, vote for me. Or Democratic Party, we have 2 senators here that are blocking everything. If you elect more Democrats like us, we could actually get things done. But we need at least 60 Democratic senators because we would do X, Y, and Z. And put it in writing. We promise to do X, Y, and Z if you deliver us X, Y, and Z senators. Actually going on offense in ads, attacking Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema for basically being Republicans and blocking the Democratic agenda. I don't think they would do any of this, but that's a better strategy. If you're Michael Bennet in Colorado, what's a better strategy? Running against the loony and pointing out how loony they are, or doing ads saying, here's how I led on X, Y, and Z. And if we could get rid of the Manchins and Cinemas and get more Democrats in here, we would deliver a $15 minimum wage, X, Y, and Z. And we are promising you that if we get this number of senators, we will deliver X, Y, and Z. A promise. Running on, I'm fighting to end the filibuster. And if we get more Democrats in here, we will pressure Biden and other Democrats to end the filibuster. Might not work, but it's a hell of a lot more convincing. It's a hell of a lot more convincing than he or she's a lunatic. Vote for me. I haven't given you anything. I'm not fighting for you, but he or she is a lunatic. True. Emmy Love, but who believes promises anymore? That's true. That's true. I'm just talking about what would be better. At this point, I think Democrats could do an ad with Jesus in the ad, joining them and endorsing them. I don't really think it's going to work. Unless prices go down significantly, unless there's some breakthrough where Biden finally grows a pair and goes on a public crusade against Manchin and Sinema, which he should have done a year ago. Frankly, Bernie and the squad should have done a year ago, going after Manchin and Sinema. Unless they actually buckle, get this man and this woman to buckle, and they could pass some form of Build Back Better, it's going to be a bloodbath. So that's what's going to happen. Welcome, new Status Coup YouTube member, Batafago. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the super chat. AR Frances, $5. They lost me with the vote for billions for the Ukraine war. Hey, they just gave another billion yesterday for Ukraine. So I can't keep up. I think it's 60 or 70 billion. Listen, I'm not against humanitarian aid for the people of Ukraine, just like we should be giving it to the people of Somalia, Syria, Yemen, but continuing to flood weapons to Ukraine so that we can continue this war, essentially using Ukraine as a sacrificial lamb so that we could continue to try and take down Putin or hurt Russia. I don't really see the benefit in that. And it also angers me when I keep going back to places like Flint and see after 8 years, they haven't changed all the damn pipes that are busted. They have not given residents Medicare for all. They have not touched the residents' busted pipes inside their homes. They're only replacing the pipes that go from the curb into the home. They haven't replaced the damaged pipes inside the home. So even if you give brand new pipes that go from the curb into the home, if you have damaged, corroded pipes inside your home, you're still leaching off lead and other heavy metals into that water. So you can't replace their pipes. You can't give them Medicare for all. The water's still toxic because I've been there as recently as 8 months ago where residents were showing me their rashes and losing their hair still. But we could give $1 billion to Ukraine like that. We can give $40 billion to Ukraine like that. There's something really fucked up. And it's not just Flint, by the way. It's a lot of other places that we should be giving money to that we're not. So moving on, I watched some of the January 6 hearings today. I haven't been able to watch them in full. There's some parts that I think are important. There's other parts that aren't anything new. But to me, and smash that like button. We got 315 people watching, but only 212 of you have pressed that like button. Even if you don't like me, just fake it. Oh, and the poll so far, will Biden run in 2024? 55% say no. 45% say yes. Yeah, that's basically what I was thinking. I was like 40, 60, 40% yes, 55% no. And by the way, hate to say it, because I try not to get on the whole like he's got this or he's got this. I'm not a doctor, but it's pretty obvious. He's done fewer interviews with the press than any politician, any president up until this point, to the point that the media has started complaining. He finally did an interview today with the Associated Press, but he's done less press conferences. He's done less interviews with the press. I don't think it's because he's not friendly. I think his people know we probably shouldn't be putting him out there if we don't have to. And by the way, even if there wasn't a health problem, 79-year-olds, you're tired. I'm 35 and I'm tired after a lot of travel. Well, when you're president and you're traveling all over the world, all over the country, on top of, at that age, on top of whatever else is going on with him, might not be the best thing. Might not be the best thing for him to run again, besides the fact that he's corrupt. So I want to get to this because this is just astounding. And this just shows the difference between the spineless, corrupt Democratic Party and the extremist, corrupt Republican Party. Trump lawyer cited heated fight among Supreme Court justices over election suits. In an email weeks after the election, another lawyer advising the Trump campaign responded that the prospect of, quote, wild chaos on January 6th could lead the Supreme Court to take up the case. A lawyer advising Trump claimed in an email after Election Day 2020 to have insight into a heated fight among the Supreme Court justices over whether to hear arguments about the president's efforts to overturn his defeat at the polls, two people briefed on the email said. The lawyer, John Eastman, made the statement in a December 24th, 2020 exchange with a pro-Trump lawyer and Trump campaign officials over whether to file legal papers that they hoped might prompt 4 justices to agree to hear an election case from Wisconsin. Quote, so the odds are not based on the legal merits, but an assessment of the justices' spines. And I understand that there is a heated fight underway, Eastman wrote, according to the people briefed on the contents of the email. Referring to the process by which at least 4 justices are needed to take up the case, he added, for those willing to do their duty, we should help them by giving them a Wisconsin certification petition to add into the mix. The pro-Trump lawyer, Kenneth Chesebro, replied that, quote, the odds of action before January 6th will become more favorable if the justices start to fear that there will be wild chaos on January 6th unless they rule by then either way. The exchange took place 5 days after Trump issued a call for his supporters to attend a protest on January 6th, the day Congress would certify the electoral vote, confirming Biden's victory. The previously unreported exchange is part of a group of emails obtained by the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot at the Capitol. Mr. Chesebro's comments about the justices being more open to hearing a case if they fear chaos was striking for its link to the potential for the kind of mob scene that materialized at the Capitol. And Mr. Eastman's email, if taken at face value, raised the question of how he would have known about internal tension among the justices. The committee is also reviewing emails between Eastman and Virginia Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, who was an outspoken supporter of Mr. Trump and in the period of Election Day, after Election Day, sent a barrage of text messages to the Trump White House urging efforts to reverse the outcome. Well, there you have it. I mean, put aside politics for a second. I don't care if you're progressive. I don't care if you're neoliberal, conservative, Tea Party, whatever. The only way Trump's lawyers know that there's fighting going on in the Supreme Court is if somebody is leaking it to them. Now, you could make an argument, well, maybe there's some clerks or something that would leak it. I don't think so. You're not getting that high-level intel about internal Supreme Court fighting over a possible case unless it's coming from a justice. Well, Clarence Thomas, apparently Ginni Thomas, and all of these text messages she was sending after the election up until January 6th, sending it to Mark Meadows, the chief of staff to Trump, and other people. She was always I just had a conversation with my best friend about this. News reports, Clarence Thomas and Ginni Thomas refer to each other as their best friends. Very cute. Nice married couple there. Well, I don't know. Seems like there's smoke here that Clarence Thomas was telling his wife internal deliberations in the Supreme Court, and Ginni Thomas was then leaking it to the Trump campaign. Can you imagine for a second if Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was alive, or Sotomayor or whatever, if there was even a suspicion that they had ever spoken with their spouse about internal deliberations in the Supreme Court, and then their spouse then leaked it to a political campaign? Oh my God, the Republicans would be calling to expel, not just to impeach, to expel even the possibility of liberal judges. Now, if that's not enough, this came out yesterday in the Washington Post. Ginni Thomas corresponded with John Eastman. Sources in the January 6th House investigation say the House committee investigating January 6th attack on the Capitol has obtained email correspondence between Ginni Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, and John Eastman, the lawyer who played a key role in efforts to pressure Pence to block certification of Biden's victories. The emails show that Thomas's efforts to overturn the election were more extensive than previously known, two of the people said. The three declined to provide details and spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters. The committee's members and staffers are now discussing whether to spend time during their public hearings exploring Thomas's role in the attempt to overturn the 2020 election. The Washington Post previously reported that the committee had not sought an interview with Thomas and was leaning against pursuing her cooperation. Of course, why have a spine? Why fight? The two people said the emails were among documents obtained by the committee and reviewed recently. Last week, a federal judge ordered Eastman to turn over 100 documents over to the committee. Eastman had tried to block the release of those and other documents. Thomas also sent messages to President Donald Trump's White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and to Arizona lawmakers. I mean, hello? Do you think, listen, a lot of older married couples, maybe they don't talk as much and they do their own thing and it's kind of, they're going through the motions. You know, maybe they eat dinner together, but it's not exactly fire and, romance anymore. You think Ginni Thomas was doing all this without her husband, Clarence Thomas, knowing? And by the way, Clarence Thomas was one of the only judges that wanted to hear, thought the Supreme Court should hear Trump's election nonsense. And he was one of the few judge. Hold on. Oh, now we're seeing Ginni Thomas. January 6th committee will invite Ginni Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice. I don't know if she'll testify. Hold on. Will testify to the January 6th committee, she told the Daily Caller. So she said she will testify. Well, I take it back. At least the Democrats are willing to poke this bear. But let's be clear here. Because there's a whole lot of resistance owls that blame Susan Sarandon for everything. Well, the current predicament of a 6-3 Republican Supreme Court is not Susan Sarandon's fault. It's not the Jill Stein voters' fault. There is this fault to go around. Number one, President Obama in 2016 was, excuse my French, cock-blocked by Mitch McConnell to name his own Supreme Court justice. McConnell blocked it. And what did Obama do? He folded like a cheap tent. He did not fight. He did not go on a political crusade against McConnell and the Republican Party. He did not use he's a bullshit artist, but his oratory skills to talk about how unprecedented this is. He did not file lawsuits because this was a breach of the Constitution. Obama has constitutional authority to nominate his Supreme Court justice and for hearings to be held. He did none of those things. Why? Because they thought that would rally the Republican base even more in an election year. So Obama abdicated his responsibility as president and to the Constitution and did not fight for his Supreme Court justice. Now, do I think Merrick Garland would be some progressive hero on the Supreme Court? No. Do I think Merrick Garland would vote to overturn Roe v. Wade? No, I don't. Do I think Merrick Garland would be, entertaining overturning elections? No. He'd probably be, kind of a corporate-friendly Supreme Court justice, but not a lunatic extremist on the issue of women's reproductive rights, transgender issues, LGBT issues, etc. So Obama, he opened the door for this 6-3 Supreme Court, because if he actually would have fought, if they actually would have went to court, aggressively went to court, because there was a lot of lawsuits to file there, and it could have been expedited, being that it's the Supreme Court and appointing a justice. You might now today have a 5-4 Supreme Court. Trump might have only been able to nominate 2 Supreme Court justices. And in a 5-4 Supreme Court, we have seen Chief Justice John Roberts go to the liberal side on Obamacare and other things. And you could have a 5-4 decision right now to keep Roe v. Wade, with Roberts going over with the liberal judges, which reporting said he would have. So Obama plays a role. But right now, look at what the Democrats are doing. I mean, you have smoking gun stuff here. You have blinking red light stuff here. That the wife of a Supreme Court justice was texting with the president's chief of staff, urging this January 6th shit, or urging overturning the election. You have the wife of a Supreme Court justice saying in text message, I just talked to my best friend about this. Well, there are news reports that Clarence Thomas and his wife refer to each other as their best friends. You have the wife of a Supreme Court justice texting the lawyer of Trump who's trying to overturn the election. We think that she did this independently of her husband, a Supreme Court justice? And how does the Trump campaign know that there's currently a fight in the Supreme Court justice about hearing Trump's case or Trump's election lie? How do they know that? Unless a Supreme Court justice is leaking it. Is Kavanaugh leaking it to the Trump campaign? I don't see a reason to believe that. Is Gorsuch leaking it to the Trump campaign? I'm no fan of either, but I don't see a pattern here that we would think that they're, on speed dial with the Trump campaign. Would Amy Coney Barrett, who just got put on the Supreme Court during this time, she's going to leak it? Alito? I don't think so. Obviously, the liberal judges wouldn't. John Roberts? I mean, there is one constant here. And you want to know something? You want to have a chance in November? Look like you're fucking fighting. You want to activate a base? It might not be progressives, but you want to activate the neoliberals? Look like you're fighting. You need to get her in there now. You need her under oath. You need to say, I want to see your communications with your husband, any emails, any text messages. Frankly, you might need to subpoena Clarence Thomas too. And that would be unprecedented. But at this point, you cannot have somebody on the Supreme Court that you don't know is they're all political operatives, really, but is literally a political operative working with his Tea Party wife to overturn an election. I mean, the fact that the Democratic Party wouldn't be using this, and you know me, I'm always against the Democratic Party using distractions to try and win, because A, it's why they lose, but B, we don't, yeah, it's great. You're for women's rights. You're for gay people. Great. Well, what is that doing for the people that are homeless, the people that are being evicted, the people that are being priced out of their apartments, because rent is going up 30 to 40% because the donors and the real estate developers that you're taking bribes from are basically getting to do whatever they want and evict people and price people out of their communities. So I'm not for distractions rather than Democrats actually doing something for us on healthcare, climate, guns, and paid sick leave, minimum wage, etc. But this is not a small distraction. This is a Supreme Court justice who clearly is compromised, who clearly, in my view, is working with his wife for a political outcome to benefit the Republican Party, who likely is leaking things to his wife, which I don't have the handbook in front of me, but you're not supposed to talk about confidential Supreme Court cases with anybody, including your spouse. And Democrats aren't fighting for impeachment here? Now, you better believe that would excite the Republican base. You better believe that Republicans would go to war. I mean, they could see Clarence Thomas literally shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, to borrow from Trump, and they would go to war to keep him there. But the Republican base is already coming out. The Republican base is already excited. The Republican base is already in a frenzy. So I really, it's just the Democrats are corrupt, but they're also a group of spineless bourgeoisie liberals who don't know how to read the pulse of America, have no concept of why Trump won. Trump didn't win because of Russia. He won for a lot of reasons, including the fact that the Democrats offshored the jobs of all of those people in the industrial Midwest to China and Mexico for the last 40 years. I know because I went to Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. I mean, it looks like episodes of The Walking Dead in a lot of communities. Closed down storefronts, closed down youth centers, whole plants and storefronts boarded up. Not for a block, you're talking blocks and whole cities. But Donald Trump looked like a fighter. He was full of shit, and the things he was fighting for were regressive and awful, but he looked like a fighter, and that's what people like. They want a fighter. Why do you think FDR won 4 times? Yes, policy, but he said, I invite your hatred to the rich, and it looked like he was fighting on behalf of the working man. Democrats look like they are spineless shits, and Biden looks like he is a half-lucid man lying in fetal position. We can't do anything about gas. Yes, you can. I covered it yesterday. Look what JFK did in 1962 before the CIA got to him. Look what he did. U.S. Steel and the steel companies were price fixing the price of steel. Steel prices went up $6 a ton. So what did JFK did? He didn't write a gingerly worded letter to the steel companies kindly asking them to lower the prices. He held a press conference. He basically called them immoral owls and Neanderthals. And then he took away a submarine contract from U.S. Steel and gave it to one of the steel companies that had not increased their prices. And guess what? U.S. Steel and the rest of the steel companies moonwalked and retreated. And they folded because the president actually threatened them. Biden could do that. They're giving billions of dollars a year to ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, Sunoco, BP. Yeah. Hey, you guys are doing well. If you could charge $5.10 for gas in the East Coast, $7 on the West Coast, you don't need these billions of dollars. So we're taking away your cookie jar. Watch how quickly gas prices go down. We shouldn't be giving those subsidies anyway. It's just a complete joke. And you want to know something? Ginni Thomas, I think Ginni Thomas, even if she incriminates herself in a hearing on the January 6th committee, honestly, I think Ginni Thomas, I think there's a 5% chance. 5%. Actually, no, I think there's a 2% chance that Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi would do a goddamn thing. They would not initiate impeachment proceedings against Clarence Thomas. Biden wouldn't do it because it's unprecedented, and then Republicans would then weaponize it against our justices and try to impeach them. Okay, So never do anything. Never try to get rid of the filibuster, because then the Republicans will abuse it when they're in power. Don't try and impeach a Supreme Court justice who is clearly working as a political operative with his wife to do these minor things like overturn an election, because maybe they'll do it to us. Never do anything. Don't fight, because then they'll fight. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. And again, I didn't watch the whole hearing, but I wanted to play this one clip because I did think this was illuminated. Colin, if you have the tweet from Brian Stelter, not a big fan of him, but this is just who tweeted it. Can we play this video from this CNN clip?
I just want to talk to the point about connecting that Mike Pence was really in danger. Congressman Aguilar quoted from some court documents in the cases against the Proud Boys. This is a witness who's not identified by name. I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he said the Proud Boys would have killed the vice president if given the chance. Anyone they would have gotten their hands on, they would have killed, including Nancy Pelosi. This was a dangerous situation.
And Abby, that's one of the things that's so galling when people in the conservative media or Republicans in Congress who were, by photographic evidence, terrified that day, when they belittle the impact of this. This was an attack on democracy, without question, an attempt to undermine an election. But also, people died, and it could have been, by intent, so much worse.
So, a few things there. I'm not going to focus on the democracy part because, like I said, we don't live in a democracy. We have the Electoral College is undemocratic. We live in the United Corporations of America. A 2014 study, I believe, from Princeton said that we're an oligarchy, not a democracy. They cited that what the elites and the donors want, 50% of the time they get it. Popular sentiment and policies, the overwhelming that have overwhelmingly majority support, almost never are passed into legislation. So I don't really think you can call that a democracy per se. But putting that aside, listen, I ain't a fan of Mike Pence. I am no fan of Nancy Pelosi. But the fact of the matter is, I agree with that clip, and I agree with that congressman. I mean, if a few things went a different way, there were people there that were looking to kill Pelosi, Pence. Whether they could have done it or not is a different thing. And that sentiment to kill them came from Trump, came from these insane lies. I saw it. I was on the ground, not just during the campaign, but after Election Day. I was on the ground in Philadelphia when they were counting ballots. I was interviewing some of these Trump supporters. The shit that they were spewing and the anger and paranoia and conspiracy coming out of their mouth, it was a different thing than I saw in 2016 from Trump supporters. Darker, more paranoid, and more New World Order-ish, if you get my drift. So this isn't about liking Mike Pence or Nancy Pelosi. This is about people could have died, and that was the intent. So I fundamentally, I don't agree. Obviously, I don't agree with Republicans, but I don't even agree with people on the left. I mean, I don't consider Glenn Greenwald on the left. I think he's clearly moved to the right wing and is frankly just pretending to have principles these days. But if you watch Glenn Greenwald these days, it's very clear he's playing to a right-wing audience. He seems to be such a free speech absolutist, but completely ignores when Republicans like Ron DeSantis attack free speech and only focuses on the Democrats. Anyway, but, you know, when people like Glenn Greenwald, for example, Jimmy Dore, others, basically kind of minimize January 6th as, hey, we should be focused on other things. And this was 18 months ago and yada, yada, yada. I disagree with that. I don't think that it should be covered like the Super Bowl. I don't think that it should have been covered for months and months and months at the expense of people being evicted, homelessness going up, Flint still not having clean water, other communities without clean water, people struggling, working 2 to 3 jobs, all the stories that we cover on Status Coup. But you could kind of walk and chew gum at the same time. Allison, Breaking Points, does too. Crystal put out a video. Listen, I'm a partner with Breaking Points. They're airing some of our footage tomorrow from our Amazon rally we covered the other day in Phoenix. Speaking of overturning elections, Amazon is trying to overturn the election results of the Amazon labor union. But I don't agree with them on anything. I haven't seen all their stuff on January 6th, but to a certain degree, yeah, even them. I mean, I think that you can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I would say this to her anyway. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can focus on inflation and people being screwed economically and this. It shouldn't be an either or. The two things are not mutually exclusive and they're not in competition with one another. So I don't agree. I mean, I've heard her say it was a terrible thing, but I've also heard, both of them say it's too much and we should be, Sagar in particular, and I don't agree with that. I mean, I love being a partner with Breaking Points, but I don't need to agree with every take. And they actually have at least said it was a serious thing and there should be hearings. I mean, people like Greenwald and Dorr and a lot of these other leftists minimizing this. I mean, literally, how can you say you're on the left and then minimize it was an insurrection? Even Greenwald, this wasn't an insurrection. This is not. What would you call it? A walk at the park? I mean, Michael Tracy went on Tucker Carlson and said, oh, well, Congress was just delayed for a few hours from doing their business, regular legislative. It wasn't delayed. It was attacked. And trust me, I don't believe politicians should be held on pedestals. I think they should be protested, including outside their homes. But I believe peacefully. I do not believe that we on the left should be advocating for violence or minimizing violence. John Farina, who was our freelance cameraman who shot the historic footage at the Capitol with the cop's head rammed into the door, he nearly broke his ribs from Trump supporters crushing him, trying to get that footage. People were bleeding all over the place. People died. So I totally disagree with any leftists that say nothing to see here, no big deal, blah, 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 blah. And by the way, when you minimize this, you're also minimizing the fact that it's not only about January 6th, it's about what comes next. There are Republicans, and I've covered this, there are Republicans across this country that are pushing out election officials in states that help to certify the election and pushing in Trump loyalists who will be obedient in 2024 so that if Trump loses or DeSantis loses or whomever, that they will have people in place that will work and will work to not certify whomever is the actual winner and work to dismiss those voters' votes and overturn. This has been reported in the Times, in the Washington Post, and elsewhere. So it's not just criticism. It's of January 6th. There's structurally things going on right now to try and elevate Trump loyalists. And by the way, to those in the chat, get over it. I honestly get a little tired of people that have such blinders on. If you ever dare criticize Glenn Greenwald or Jimmy or one of your YouTube idols, I mean, you really need to kind of get a grip. That you shouldn't worship anybody, a YouTube host, a journalist, certainly not me. And you should probably look at things consistently. I mean, you don't find it kind of suspicious that Glenn Greenwald is basically the leader of the Tucker Carlson Defense League? You don't find it kind of suspicious that regardless of what Tucker Carlson says, regardless of what he says, what he does, Glenn will defend it? Because I get suspicious of any person, journalist, YouTube host, that always has the same note. You don't find that kind of, maybe he's just trying to keep his spot on the show, play to a right-wing audience. Come on. Yes, they do it for access. Thank you, Allison. You don't find it kind of suspicion that people proclaim to be free speech heroes and free speech absolutists, but then when the governor of Florida is banning protests in residential neighborhoods, i.e. to ban protests outside politicians like him, outside their homes, outside judges' homes, you don't find it suspicious that free speech absolutists say nothing? Or when the governor is banning math textbooks, because it has critical race theory in it, crickets, or when the governor is threatening sports teams, I'm going to pull your funding or pull tax funding to those sports teams. By the way, I'm not for tax funding going to those sports teams, but we're going to pull your funding because you tweeted out something about gun control. Crickets. You don't find it kind of suspicious when free speech absolutists say nothing when Ron DeSantis is pushing bills that will literally have Ron DeSantis take over Florida public education so he could dictate what is taught and what isn't? You don't find it suspicious that leftists or, people who are for, against, perfect. You don't find it suspicious that Glenn Greenwald, who literally broke the Edward Snowden story about NSA abuse and surveillance, he's on Rumble, which is funded by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel owns Palantir, which works with the NSA to surveil you. So all I'm saying is, I think, unfortunately, internet culture, YouTube culture, I think that internet culture has really gone down the rabbit hole where people cannot be objective anymore and people have blinders on for their certain favorite hosts or YouTube hosts or journalists. So if you ever criticize them, you're taking them out of context. If you ever criticize them, you're a shit lib. If you ever criticize them, you're doing it for clout or to try to get views. And they won't actually look at what the actual criticism is for and see, maybe there's a point here. Maybe I should look at this differently. So I don't have a lot of patience for that. So lastly, and by the way, for those that came late, let's show it again. Little lighter subject. Let's show, Colin, do you still have the Millie clip? What did he say? That was my dog, Millie. I have no idols, and I find you and your tiny little operation wanting. Keep going after the People's Party, a worthy use of your money and time. I don't know what you mean. Is breaking a story on an investigation into the head of the People's Party? Was that going after them? See, this is what I'm talking about. When you even report and you just report facts, this tribalism of going after the People's Party. Maybe you should be asking the People's Party where the candidates are that they promised, because they said they were going to be running candidates in 2022. Actually, they said they were going to be running candidates in 2020, but 2022 too. Maybe you should be asking them that. But I didn't go after them. I reported, which was accurate, that there was an investigation into sexual harassment and that board members were abruptly removed the same weekend that they called for an emergency meeting to discuss that investigation. Those were the facts. So anyway, little throwback Thursday, and a lot of people might have never seen this if you're new to Status Coup. I want to start going through oh no, Millie's not afraid of me anymore. I want to start going through some of our goodies and oldies. So this is a clip from an interview I did in Miami, first Democratic primary debate of 2020. For you Status Coup OGers, you will remember this. For you that are new, this might be the first time you're seeing this. But this is me interviewing a Trump supporter who really, really hates socialism, but really, really loves socialism for himself. I'm going to play it. We'll probably stop and start a little bit, get some reaction, show you a little behind the scenes. Can I ask you a question, sir?
Absolutely.
So what's your name?
Ted Masters.
Thanks for talking to me, Ted. I'd rather be an American than a Democrat. I assume you're saying Democrats aren't Americans.
No, the Democrats just want socialism. That's not American.
Okay. So
they want free everything. That's not American.
Are you on Social Security?
In America,
Are you on Social Security?
I am, but I work a full-time business.
I know, but you're aware Social Security is a socialist program.
Well, that's beside the point.
You just said you don't want socialism.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't want socialism across the board.
So are you going to go give up your Social Security tomorrow?
I would give up my Social Security if I had to.
Okay. Just making the point. You're saying you don't want socialism, but you're enjoying it. No. You are on a socialist program.
Wait a second. No, I'm not, because I paid into Social Security for 50 years before I started drawing off of it.
Right. But it's redistribution.
Young people right now. I earned it.
Okay. So, but you agree it's a socialist program. The Veterans Administration is a socialist program. The Veterans Healthcare.
You know what? The veterans deserve everything they get. They're the ones that stood up and fought for you and I, so we can stand here and talk freely.
We're in agreement. I'm just saying we already have socialist programs that you're.
Well, that's fine. A few of them are fine, but not across the board.
Okay. So which ones are you afraid
I've
of?
been in the health insurance business for 30 years. We cannot afford socialized medicine.
Can we afford endless war?
We cannot afford single payer health insurance.
Colin, pause it for a second. So what you didn't see around that fine gentleman was behind them to the right, behind them to the left was a bunch of Trump supporters. And they were looking at me like I was a ribeye steak. And they were looking at me like, oh boy, I'm about to pounce. Luckily, I had Ty, Status Coup, one of the co-founders of Status Coup, who was my cameraman down there. So he had my back. But they were looking like they were ready for some fisticuffs with me. One of them in particular was fuming. And why? Because they're not actually, by the way, it's not just Trump supporters, neoliberal types. They're not actually used to being aggressively challenged by American reporters. They're used to kind of fluffy interviews. They're used to kind of, a volley, a tennis volley of talking points, even if they're talking in contradictions, talking in hypocrisy, talking in stupidity. They're used to basically not being challenged on that. Now, some people criticize me, Jordan, you're too aggressive. You should have let him talk a little more. But you kind of just have to take the temperature a little bit. Because to me, yeah, I could have let him talk more. But in these situations, I've had it where when you do challenge them, they cut you off. So if you let them talk and talk and talk, and then you challenge them, 2.5, 3 minutes in, then you've just wasted 2.5 minutes of stupidity, of them pushing out nonsense, and then they're just going to cut the interview. So in some cases, I like to just go in right away. If they're going to cut the interview, all right, I didn't just make the audience have to listen to this for 2.5 minutes. And in some cases, it's too obvious. The guy's out there ranting about socialism. He obviously was in an older age bracket. Nothing wrong with that. Tell me about your Social Security. And I loved the fact that the goalposts kept moving. First, it was, we can't have socialism. Then we could have some socialism as long as it's benefit for me. And he's right. He did pay in for it. He did pay into Social Security. And that's why he should get Social Security. But you want to know something? We shouldn't have to pay into things to get them. There are certain things, just as a human being, we should get from a government that we pay money to fund, like healthcare, like paid leave, like a safe planet and environment, not revolutionary things. Let's keep going.
Afford endless war? We spent $6 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan. Were you out here talking about that?
President Trump isn't looking for that either. He's trying to pull everything back.
What are you talking about? The debt has exploded under Trump. The debt is up double.
You know what? That might be true, but he's also created far more business than anybody in history. And as the business grows, the business taxes will pay that off.
But
you got to understand.
No. Let's just talk the facts, though.
It takes a free economy to pay off debt.
Right, but if what he's doing is mostly deregulation and tax cuts for wealthier people, which that's what the tax cuts were for,
that's people who create business and jobs for you.
So why is it that such a large portion of America work minimum wage jobs to a little over minimum wage? And you have an exploding income inequality in this country. If the wealthy people are creating the jobs, why are so many people living paycheck to paycheck?
That's a has-been.
Has-beens are living paycheck to paycheck?
Yes, because
right,
it's coming around the.
Stop. That is, in 7 years of doing this, I wish I would have marked down the time codes for this. I would have loved. That's my favorite moment of interviews, when you kind of interview them and you're kind of going back and forth a little bit, and there's a long silence because their brains are not computing anymore, because they're realizing they're full of shit, but they're not realizing they're full of shit at the same time. And they don't know what to say because their brain is being scrambled, because they're so used to their whatever orthodoxy they're spewing, most of it that's based on propaganda that they're probably getting from Fox News or MSNBC or CNN. But that long gap shows you he doesn't know what to say. So finally, after that 5 to 6, 7 gap where he doesn't know what to say because he's finally being challenged, and his bullshit propaganda, he's not computing it. There has-beens. So all the people working multiple jobs, or all the people working for minimum wage. I don't have an answer for why that is in this super duper awesome country that I'm talking about. I don't have an answer for why they're working, for barely nothing, even though I just gave him the answer, which is the corporate welfare and the income inequality. So I'm just going to call them has-beens. Keep going.
The other way. It's taken time. But we have more people working today than we have had in history. We've got fewer people on welfare and fewer people
We don't have fewer people on welfare than in history.
We don't. Where have you been looking at your statistics?
The Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
Yeah, well, I think you're screwed up.
Well, I could read, so. No, but what I'm asking you, because the unemployment is low, a lot of people have left the workforce, so that brings down the unemployment rate. The real unemployment.
Coming back. A lot of people are coming back.
And where are you getting that from?
That's coming from statistics.
Because if you look at the states he won, I'm talking Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, he said he's going to bring these plants back.
And they're coming back.
No, they're not. I've been there in the last 2 years. The plants are still closed. This Foxconn plant he talked about in Wisconsin, that they got huge.
So, giving you a little behind the scenes, when I looked at I don't know if you noticed that, but I said, no, they're not. I've been going to these places. I looked back at the camera, and Ty's face, our cameraman who comes on here for Happy Hour and Haters, Ty's was smiling so he was laughing because he was enjoying it. Like this was like an entertaining thing. And that kind of gives me, the journalist, a little fuel when you look at the cameraman and they're into it and they're laughing and they're having fun. So Ty behind the camera, I wish you could have seen it, but his face was lit up like a Christmas tree. It was really something. Continue. Oh, by the way, sorry. He just asked me, where am I getting my statistics? So I say from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. I turn around, where are you getting your statistics? I'm getting my statistics from statisticians. So I don't know where I'm getting my numbers from when I'm telling you I'm getting from the Labor Department. But you tell me you're getting it from statisticians? Who? Karl Rove? Keep going.
Tax subsidies from Wisconsin for Foxconn, they're not actually creating those jobs anymore. They're switching what Foxconn is going to be away from making specialized glass for TVs to research and development. So he's not opening these. General Motors just laid off 15,000 people. He told the people in Lordstown, Ohio, don't move. So what are you talking about that he's brought back all these jobs?
Sometimes businesses have to retool in order to make things work.
Retool meaning send the jobs offshore and do stock buybacks?
Not sending jobs offshore.
But his tax cut, the businesses have bought back stock buybacks. That's what they did with the tax cut. These are facts. This has been reported. With the money from the tax cuts, they bought back their stock to drive up the shares for investors.
That's fine. Then they can continue on to build other business and create jobs. It takes time. You can't create jobs literally overnight. It takes time for a corporation to rehire people and get things going.
What are the 15,000 people supposed to do that were laid off by General Motors? How much time should they wait? Or the workers at Burger King, McDonald's that are working 40 hours a week there, another job, and barely could put a roof over their head. Are they has-beens?
At least they have a job. Things are better than it used to be. That's the bottom line.
When did it? What did it used to be like?
It's gotten better over the last 3 years.
And it's better how?
There's more jobs to go around to people. I've got a lot of people in the ghetto community that I happen to live next to.
The ghetto community
in Boynton Beach. That
what the ghetto community? What is that?
In Boynton Beach.
A poor black community?
Area. Okay. It's a big area, and there's more people there.
Fairly racist. It's a racist comment, but go ahead.
You know what? I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Okay, because you said something racist.
You've been swallowing the soup. So goodbye.
Sorry, you made a racist comment, and I called you on it. Okay, the ghetto community is peace and love. That's what you meant.
It's peace and love, and it's been a lot of unopportunity, and the people with unopportunity have been coming back to work. Okay.
Thank you. Good night, sir. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over.
So my favorite part of that. Did you see the woman, Colin? Can you get that back? Did you see the woman behind me, dressed in like Statue of Liberty Americana? I don't know if she was eating a snow cone or cotton candy. That was some shit, man. Oh, I wish we would have done like a meme or something. What is that, Colin? Is that cotton candy or a snow cone? I can't tell. But that was really, really something. As this guy's talking about the ghetto community. And you want to know something? Listen, I'm a white dude. It's one thing if a black person wants to refer to the ghetto. It's to me, it's kind of similar to the N-word, you know? That's for a black person to talk about. But for white people to be like, I know people in the ghetto community. Yeah, I don't think this guy was a Klansman racist. It's just he's just a normal white privileged kind of racist. Doesn't hate black people per se, but is subconsciously and in many cases consciously racist. But on one end, you got to give credit. He was willing, even though he's cookie, he was willing to be challenged. He didn't run away right away. I've had people that run away right away. He wasn't willing to open up to different facts. I kept hammering over the head with different facts. He certainly wasn't interested in actually admitting, yeah, maybe I need to look at something differently, right? But you got to give credit that at least he was willing to entertain it. Because I'll tell you what, as a journalist, so few people are used to being challenged, even like lightly challenged. Yes, that is the day that I said, hey, Ty, let's go interview these Trump supporters. So few people are used to being challenged by anybody outside of Twitter, journalists, anybody. So when you challenge them, they're very caught off guard. And in a lot of circumstances, as journalists, it's tricky because you want to try and interview as many people as you can. We need to create content for the channel. But if you go too aggressive, other people might not be willing to interview with you. In a lot of cases, they're not. I've had this particularly with the neoliberals. I remember at Hillary Clinton rallies that I covered or debates where Clinton supporters were outside. If I was aggressive with one, when I mean aggressive, just challenging them on bullshit and propaganda or hypocrisy, other people would be looking and be like, what's going on here? And then I'd go to them and be like, oh, no, I'm okay. Not interested. So that was a trip through memory lane. Let me know in the chat. Do you enjoy a little throwback Thursday, looking back at old interviews? Because there's plenty, not just Trump supporters, but other people we could do this with. Because I'm thinking if the audience likes it, I might do it here and there on YouTube, but I might do it a lot more. I might do it a lot more for members where we do throwbacks to previous clips because we have a huge archive. Right now, we're actually talking about creating an archive on our website because we have the playlist section on YouTube. on the homepage of our YouTube. You can click on playlists, but it's kind of a mess. We have way too many of them. So we're thinking of actually creating on our website an archive, a categorized archive of all our on-the-ground reporting, so people could go back and watch old clips. So we could use old clips that are relevant, that we could throw them into stories we do today. But I think maybe we'll do more Throwback Thursday kind of stuff. Some of it on YouTube and a lot of it for members too. So let me read some super chats. AR Frances, $5. They lost me with the vote for billions to Ukraine war. Yep. Welcome, Boo Botafago. Welcome, new Status Coup member. Big Dumb Animal, $5. Thank you. Venetia David, £3. Thank you. Thank you. Double K, $19.99. Thank you. The Dude, new YouTube member. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome, Amber Grigo, new member. Thank you. So those 3 new YouTube members. Welcome. Welcome. And $4.99 from Cameron Baka is it really TBT when it is just as accurate today? That's a good point. That's a good point. And that's what I love about a lot of these clips, because you look back through like old George Carlin clips and you realize, wow, the shit he's saying is so relevant today. Similar with a lot of the clips from even 4 or 5 years ago from the campaign, from covering workers out there, covering the General Motors workers when they were fired. The shit they were telling me on the road, very similar to the stuff that I'm hearing nowadays from Amazon workers, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we're going to do more of that. And also keep on signing up to support Status Coup. You could become a member to Status Coup for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Become a member at statuscoup.com/join. You could become a member for $5 a month, and you get access to our monthly Zoom call with our members, our behind the scenes videos, which we might be doing more of this behind the scenes, kind of throwbacks to our old interviews, giving you the behind the scenes of those interviews, my commentary, as well as we have a Discord for our members, which I want to get more active. So definitely, if you're a member, get in that Discord so I can talk to you in the Discord channel. So please support us, because we want to take more reporting trips. I am kind of nursing a tear in my ACL, so I'm in physical therapy for my knee and my ACL, but I'm hoping to get back on the road soon. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Before I go, I want to tease, because coming up at 8 o'clock Eastern, right here on Status Coup, is Let's Get Ready to Grumble. Let's Get Ready to Grumble with Steve Grumbine. He's going to have Shahid Buttar, who ran against Nancy Pelosi in 2020, and again this year. I think Shahid's going to break some news on the show, so I don't want to give it away, but let's play a short clip.
I was very, very upset to find out. I mean, obviously, before we talked, there was a chance that you would get this, or at least get into the next round, so to speak. And then as of the moment that we were sitting there in the green room waiting for this, we find out that you're not in the running anymore. And that's kind of a bummer, because we've got no real champions over there. Nancy Pelosi's long in the tooth. This is probably her last ride into the sunset, if that. We really needed a progressive voice, and clearly something, I don't know if it's this system. Certainly the people say they want these things, so the things you were fighting for are right there in the sweet spot of what everybody would want.
Right.
And yet you didn't even make it to the last round. What happened?
One of the things to reflect on here, just in terms of the outcome of the race and what happens next, we ended up finishing just over 500 votes out of the second place finish that would have put me in the general election. It's a top 2 jungle primary, and we won it in 2020. We came up just short this year. I was edged by a Republican, meaning that Nancy Pelosi is going to face a Republican in the general election, and she's going to claim that she's fighting Republicans, and she's going to raise money for it while enabling their policies, just as she always has before. In 2020,
well, you can watch the full interview with Shahid Buttar at 8 o'clock Eastern with Steve Grumbine. I'm looking forward to that. Definitely tune in. We want to get people in the habit of tuning into Steve at 8 o'clock. We might be expanding and adding other hosts as we go. We need your support to make that happen. So statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Thank you. Another super chat. Cat, $10 more Millie. Oh, Thank you. And by the way, my wife works very hard on those Instagram posts. Go follow Millie on Instagram. Make sure I give you the right name. Hold on, because I'm not super plugged in. It is. Go follow Moscow Millie on the Instagram. We got to get my dog's follows up because my wife puts a lot of work into these photos and videos, and we love our Millie. And by the way, we found out this week she does not need surgery on her leg, on her front leg. So we're very happy about that. My wife was crying with concern, and I was concerned too. Anyway, tune in 8 o'clock Eastern, Steve Grumbine with Shahid Buttar. And the last plug, get yourself to the store, statuscoup.com/store. Get your United Corporations of America shirt. We had a few purchases yesterday. Get your Fossil Fuckers shirt. We got other gear there. We want to see more people rocking the Status Coup gear. So that's at statuscoup.com/store. You could also look right under this live stream. Under the description, you will see an option to scroll. We have other merchandise, Status Coup coffee mugs, iPhone covers, pillowcases, short sleeve shirts, Status Coup tees, sweatpants, yoga pants, you name it. So definitely go to statuscoup.com/store, as well as right under the live stream and description. You could scroll to get other gear. Thanks for watching. I'm going to be off tomorrow, so I'll be back here on Monday, but we'll have other videos up tomorrow and through the weekend. Have a good night.